Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will just remind everyone that this is a new hearing that is part of it's an addition to the budget process that was put in the law in the spring of 2019, so just a little under a year ago. It is property tax oriented as opposed to the rest of the pieces of the budget, and it is only on the revenue side. And there was a special notice that was sent out and put in the paper this year associated with this. So now I could go through my general presentation at this time if that'd be helpful. Okay. So this is the budget for fiscal year 21, beginning 7/1/20 and ending June 30th of 2021. And the proposed property tax rate for this budget is 14.3123 per $1,000 of taxable value. So the city's levy rate was unchanged for 10 consecutive years at 13.5277. This year we're proposing to raise it. The portion we're raising is in the operating side of the general fund. We're proposing that the debt tax rate stay unchanged at 2.1202. So the city's chief goals in formulating the budget each year are to have it be balanced, meaning revenues and expenditures are equal, to maintain the property tax rate when possible, to maintain sufficient fund balances, and to provide high-quality public services. The challenges are, of course, generally rising costs. Planning for future needs is a big part of what all the department heads do here. And for FY21 specifically, there was a decrease in the taxable value to which the property tax rate applicable to the general fund is applied. So even without factoring in an increase in costs, we have a decrease in property tax revenues. So in Iowa, property is categorized into several types: residential through agricultural. Multi-residential was a new property class back in FY17, so it's been a little bit, but that is relatively new. There are growth limitations imposed on some of the classes to eliminate dramatic tax shifts in terms of the tax burden between classes of property. And that gets implemented through something called the rollback. So the rollback is the proportion of assessed value that is taxable. And so here's a comparison of FY20, the current fiscal year, and FY21's rollback figures. So you can see that residential, the taxable value, all things equal, decreased about 1.84%. Multi-residential went down just under 4%. So the proposed property tax rate means, coupled with the rollback changes at the state level, means that a residential property assessed at $100,000 has a taxable value that's $1,844 less than the year before. And when you factor in the tax rate proposal, the property tax to be paid to the city for the city portion of the tax bill increases by $35.82 for that $100,000 assessed value home. Commercial property assessed at $500,000 would be taxable at $450,000, and then the tax rate as applied to that would mean an additional property tax bill for the city of $353.07. So in 2013, which is becoming quite a while ago, there was some commercial and industrial property tax reform passed. The reason I keep not taking it out of this presentation is there are backfill or make-whole payments that were put in place at that time, and those pay for what the property taxes would have paid for had cities and counties kept receiving them at the level they used to be received at. So I keep it there just to keep reminding us all that those backfill payments coming from the state to pay for that legislation are important. So the city tax levy property tax levy has several components, and they're listed here. On the next page, there's a comparison of the 2 years, FY21 that we're currently budgeting for, and FY20. So you'll see that most of the levies are relatively similar. The one, we have a little bit in terms of tort liability increase, so think insurance and legal costs. Transit up just a hair, and then trust and agency is where most of the increase is. So then if we take the property tax for Coralville and add it in to the rest of the taxing entities to show what a total property tax bill might look like for an average citizen, we put the school in the county, etc. This is what it would look like using Coralville's proposed FY21 rate and those other bodies' current FY20 rate, because I don't know yet where their rates are headed with certainty. And then this chart breaks that into proportions. So you can see the school, the city of Coralville, and Johnson County are the predominant slices. There are a few smaller pieces as well. But that gives you some feel for the proportionality. So the hearing that the mayor just opened is called by some the max levy hearing. It's mandated by Senate File 634, passed this past year. If you look at the notice, if you looked at or choose to look at in the future this notice, there's something I want to point out about it. It talks about the maximum property tax levy. One would naturally think, hearing that title, that it would be the maximum amount of property taxes that can be levied. However, as with all things that seem to go through the legislature, there's a twist. It excludes certain property tax levies. In our case, the one that's excluded is the debt service levy. So, with that in mind, what it does say is the current year tax rates in dollars and the proposed the FY21 tax rate if the same dollars were requested. What it does not say is what the actual total current or proposed levy rate is that you would see on your tax bill. So let me show you the notice that was published with a couple little balloons at the bottom with notes. So first column, property tax in the current year, dollars and rate at the bottom. Second column, if the same dollars for the year to be budgeted, what would the property tax rate be? That's at the bottom, that tax rate. And what is the city actually requesting? And I made a note in the far left and right column of what the total property tax rate is in comparison to the numbers that appear on that notice. So you have to be a little bit of a careful consumer of that notice. But the notice is mandated by the state Department of Management, and so that's the form we use. So the general fund is the city's chief operating fund. It has various sources of revenue: property taxes, hotel motel taxes, permits and license revenues, interest, rental income, things like that. Intergovernmental, things like grants and 2080 contracts, rec program charges, and borrowings or interfund transfers. The estimated revenue for FY21 is $29.33 million in round numbers. That's a 4% increase from FY20, the current year. And the functions that supports are public safety, health, social services, culture, recreation, economic development, community development, general government like administrative costs, and contingencies. So here we have a listing of the revenues to give you a feel for the proportions. Property and excise taxes are just under half of the general fund's revenues. There are several departments that have expenses budgeted out of the general fund, and this gives you a feel for the proportions there as well. So park and rec, public safety, police, fire, animal control, things like that as well. The city receives state road use tax funds for use on the city streets, and it's allocated based on population. It's projected by the state DOT to be $127 per person for FY21, so that's about $2.4 million. That pays for things like snow removal, treatment, ice melting, traffic signaling, repair of streets, patching, and regrading. The city has several enterprise funds, public transit, water, wastewater, and the others listed here. And we're proposing no change in rate structure for those. And the FY21 budget includes several things, like a replacement of a paratransit bus in public transit, an additional patrol officer in police, some equipment and tools in fire. Streets, we have some replacement of plow truck, and we also have some additional equipment for street repair. And then we have work on several city streets that's scheduled and budgeted for. In solid waste, the replacement of one truck, and in the library, study room enhancements and furniture replacements in the adult and young adult areas. This isn't a full listing, but it's some of the notable things I pulled out of the budget. In the various enterprise funds, there's basically a budget number for FY21 that can give you a feel for the size of each of those enterprises. So timing and additional information. The Connection magazine was delivered to mailboxes already. It was last week. And so that's in the past, but it's a source of information. March 10th, we'll have another public hearing, the one that we've had in the past on our normal process. March 24th, we would plan to adopt the budget, and then it would be filed and implemented per the state's required schedule. And there's information available online at City Hall, here at the Coralville Public Library, again in the Connection magazine, and there will be some things on Coral Vision as well.